Okay, I want to say good morning to everyone. My name is Lucinda Land, and I'm the Acting Executive Director. I want to welcome you here to our convention and to Dayton, Ohio. Thank you for being here with us. I have a couple of announcements before we begin our plenary sessions this morning. I want to let you know that we have a hospitality suite. It's up on the 5th floor. It's called the Dunbar Suite. I believe it was open this morning for a bit of bagels and coffee. Later on this evening, after 10 p.m., after our last panel, we're going to have a wine and cheese session. You're welcome to come up there. Again, it's called the Dunbar Suite on the 5th floor. I also want to let you know that we have a tour today. Sorry, not today, but it's the Carolyn Park tour. And it's a historical park with the Wright Brothers Museum, and you can go to the registration desk to find out more information. There is a fee, so you might want to inquire how much that is. Transportation is provided for that event. I want to thank our sponsors who have made our convention possible. And we have L3 Communications here. Sorry, let me get my glasses on. The Ohio Space Grant Consortium, Time Warner Cable, Wright State University Astronomy Club, Info Scitex, the National Space Society, Wright State University Aerospace Medicine, the Autumn Society, AIAA, ASME, and the Mars Foundation. Our first speaker today is Dr. Robert Zubrin, President of the Mars Society. Please welcome him. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Lucinda, for getting this thing going, and thanks to all of you for turning out this early for the opening talk. Okay, so what I guess I want to do is address the current situation that we have with the American space program, and in particular the human spaceflight program. The robotic exploration program, of course, has experienced some changes due to the change in the administration, but none of a critical nature. I mean, they did hurt us by canceling the Mars Scout program, which was a program actually that the Mars Society was responsible for initiating. At our founding convention, we said we wanted a competitive program. We called it Mars Discovery Program, analogous to the Discovery missions, where you could have competitive bidding of teams of creative ideas, so that it wouldn't all come out of the JPL Central Committee. And in fact, that program was initiated and in fact won by a Mars Society steering committee member, Peter Smith, the Mars Phoenix lander. And this is going to be discontinued, but nevertheless, there remains in place the main Mars robotic exploration program run out of JPL. And while one might disagree with particular decisions of that group, overall, that program is competently led, and it has been a successful program, a very successful program overall. And it's defended by people who know how to defend their program. So that's going to go on, and we could get more good things from them, as we have over the past decade and more. But the real issue, the real crisis, is the manned spaceflight program. Now, as I think most people here have heard, the administration came in with a very radical change in policy this February, which has provoked a wide comment, and it poses a crisis. What they basically did was cancel the Constellation program, the Bush-Griffin program to send humans to the moon with a particular set of hardware that had been designed under Griffin, without putting anything comparable in its place. And Constellation, I mean, Griffin is going to be here tomorrow, and of course, obviously, he supports it because he designed it. I support the general spirit behind it. I don't think that the particular design decisions are beyond criticism, and I've criticized some of them. But nevertheless, what was done here was not an attempt to correct perceived deficiencies, but rather simply throw it out. And they initially eliminated the Orion capsule, designed to transport crew to orbit and thence to the moon, and could be used to re-enter from Mars after returning from a Mars mission. They canceled the Ares-1, which was designed to lift the Orion. They canceled the Ares-5, which was the heavy lift booster, which in fact was the most valuable element of the whole affair, because that's the single most important piece of hardware we need to send humans beyond low Earth orbit is a heavy lift booster, and they derailed that. And then said, well, we'll come up with a design for a heavy lift booster by 2015. Well, we have a design for a heavy lift booster now. We've had designs for heavy lift boosters since 1967, when we flew our first heavy lift booster. This idea that working on booster technology more before we come up with a design is ridiculous, okay? I mean, since I personally been in the business, we've had lots of design programs for heavy lift boosters. We've had Shuttle C, we had the Advanced Launch System, ALS, the new launch system, NLS. We had X-33, we had the Space Lifter program, the Space Launch Initiative, the Bantam program, of course, the Constellation program, and Venture Star, and I'm sure I'm leaving out 3 or 4 others, and none of these have produced anything, okay? We are in no way better prepared today to build a heavy lift booster than we were in 2000 or 1990 or 1980, okay? And less better prepared than we were in 1970, since at that point we were rolling them off the assembly line. Okay, so this is not a way to go forward. And more fundamentally, the methodological problem is this, is that NASA only achieves anything when it is mission-driven. I would submit to you that the reason why the robotic Mars program has been productive, very productive, whereas the human spaceflight program has been relatively unproductive, is because, and the NASA so-called technology development efforts have been very, that have been conducted separate from missions, have been very unproductive, is because the robotic program is mission-driven. That is, they conceive of a mission. We're going to want to land a rover on Mars. And then they say, okay, what do we need to have? That we need to have a rover. We need to have a landing and descent system that is packaged to be adequate for that rover. We need a launch vehicle and a transfer stage that is available to deliver all this. And they design the whole thing end to end. It all has to work together, and they fly it. And if they need certain technologies to do that, bigger airbags or bigger aeroshell, then better rover, then those are designed, as opposed to things that are just done in isolation for missions. So, for instance, the most productive time of the human spaceflight program, of course, was Apollo, okay, where they were given a deadline by the president. You got to have people on the moon by the end of this decade. And so they had to conceive of an end-to-end set of systems that were capable of doing that. Early on in the Apollo program, there were divergent factions that each had their own favored little fetish that they wanted to pursue, and which they were trying to impose on. They say, okay, in order to go to the moon, you have to have nuclear rockets. In order to go to the moon, you have to have a space station. In order to go to the moon, you have to have a Saturn IX super booster, and so forth. And before you do your program, you have to do my program. But because of the deadline, by 1963, all of these things were shaken out. In fact, there was a meeting down at Marshall where, basically it was a food fight between the different people pushing these things and the LOR people who had the right answer. And finally people said, look, do we really want to go to the moon or don't we? And the people, yeah, it's got to be LOR. Okay. And so these are the two different modes that NASA can proceed in. It can either proceed in a mission-driven mode where you say, this is the goal, what technologies do we need to develop, and what hardware do we need to develop to accomplish this, and then you implement the plan. Or you say, well, these people in California want to work on this, so we'll fund some of that, and we got this new electric thruster over here that a lot of people are talking about, so let's put some money in that. And the Augustine Commission, there's a guy on it named Jeff Greason who was really into orbital propellant depots, so why don't we put that in the program? And and it's kind of like trying to build a house by going to garage sales and picking up interesting things and accumulating them in your garage, and then hoping that eventually it will add up to a house, as opposed to having a plan for a house and then buying what you need in accordance with the plan. Those are the two differences. So the so-called technology-driven approach that was announced by Holdren and then Obama is that. It's the garage sale approach. It is you get a random sort of technology development programs which don't fit together and don't lead anywhere. And in fact, isolated from a mission plan, the technologies are never driven, taken above what NASA calls technology level 6, and usually not above 5. 7 would be flight capable, because there simply isn't the money there to support development to flight status of a technology that you have no program that is using it. So that's why you get a series of abortive technology programs instead of actual hardware. The time that NASA was most productive in technology development was when it was not technology driven, which is really constituency driven, but when it was mission driven. That is during the Apollo period. During the Apollo period, okay, and by the way, let me make this clear. NASA's budget during the Apollo period, that is from Kennedy's speech 1961 through 1973, the final Apollo Skylab missions, which is, Skylab is really a piece with Apollo. If you take all the money that they had budgeted to them over that period of time, and you turn it into today's dollars, and divide it by 13, which is not that many years, it comes out to $19 billion a year in today's money, which is NASA's current budget. That is, NASA's average budget over the Apollo period was the same as NASA's budget today. And frankly, the same as what NASA's budget has been since, in general order, since 1990 or so. That is, for the past 20 years, NASA has operated with its Apollo budget. Okay, there was a period in the 70s and early 80s when it had significantly less because Carter cut it a lot. But for the past 20 years, we've had Apollo funding in NASA, but not Apollo achievement. We haven't been sending people to the moon, okay? And we haven't done, during the Apollo period, in addition to sending people to the moon and doing over 40 lunar and planetary probes, okay, Ranger, Mariner, Surveyor, so forth,